Hi folks, you're with Tasselus today at your Pushback channel, and this essay is about indoctrinating, or how teenage girls are indoctrinated into activism using the Western education system. Recently, a business I was associated with was hiring for a few technical marketing type roles, and a disproportionate number of young women applied. More than 3/4 of the total were women, and nearly all of these women were in the 18 to 22 years age range. The CVs of each of the girls and young women seemed the same, but instead of working at fast food outlets when they were, say, 14 or 15 years old, in an after-the-school casual job, they had all of them had worked for NGOs. This was a remarkable thing. So let's have a look at that, and let's just look a little bit more closely at it. Masses of young women attending some useless gender studies type degree or majoring in lesbian dance should no longer surprise anyone today. However, what caught my eye here was how many had worked for the most activist NGOs during senior high school and then college, or taking a year off to do NGO volunteer work before going to college or in between high school and college. The NGO gigs were not treated by the girls as some low priority gig barely worth mentioning and something they did in spare time or as some hobby. It was placed on the CV as a prominent big deal, a headline that really meant something, an honourable and super seriously worthwhile undertaking that made them morally superior beings. A full-time paid gig with an NGO represented the pinnacle of their adult aspirations. Through the NGO work, they believed they had played a part in making the world a better place. They had grown immensely as people, they asserted, and they'd learnt a lot about the world and how terrible it was and still is. They had learnt from the NGOs that they must fight against the white fascist patriarchy, fight against racism by whites, fight against homophobia by straight white males, and fight against climate change inaction by those wicked white people. To the question, China and India are the world's biggest emitters of pollution, so why not go to China and be a climate activist there? No. Australia must show leadership on climate change. It just doesn't matter what China does. Well, what about the places in, say, the Middle East where homosexuality is illegal and where gays are thrown off buildings? No, they do that as part of their culture, so it's kind of okay, whereas homophobia in white Australia is only because straight white men, or all men over the world, white men, are uniquely evil. Yikes, NGOs actually teach this crap? Let me paint a picture for you. The most activist and lavishly funded NGOs are heavily tentacled into the entire Australian and Western college and school system, even reaching as far down as pre-teen school students. They brazenly coordinate and interact with activist teachers and teacher unions and Department of Education public service apparatchiks to turn school children and young adults into white Western nation hating zombie activists. Such an achievement. What a worthwhile goal. Now, something as widespread and involving so many people at so many layers could hardly have gone unnoticed, and yet this veritable juggernaut rolls on, growing by the day, and yet somehow slips completely under the radar. Now, I'm not aware of any media coverage. The 2016 UN Global Action Plan on Climate Change lays out a framework for school-child global citizen indoctrination. But this at a time and since has received unquestioningly positive partisan media coverage. Yet, by contrast, when one high school teacher suggested in a private conversation that immigration should be slowed down to allow migrants already in Australia to better integrate, the media sphere went into hyper-driven uproar. Politicians of all types gagged. Senior public servants gave grovelling assurances to a frightened public of never again will we let this happen. The teacher will be disciplined. The school principal should be fired. We want blood. Ah! Leftist talking heads warned of Nazi, fascist, bigot, racist apocalypse just being around the corner, being upon us. But tens of thousands of school kids and 3 out of every 4 girls being subject to coordinated and planned indoctrination with hysterical anti-white, anti-male propaganda, and not a word from the media or the body politic. This means this NGO indoctrination process, working hand in glove with the Education Department of Western nations, is receiving political funding and political protection from all sides of politics, as well as blanket media protection. Just ponder that if you will. You've been with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.